Hello and welcome back to the Tech Blackboard. Today is our part 2 of our AZ-900 real exam question and answer series. In this part, we will be covering from question number 11 to question number 25. I hope you have not missed the earlier part 1, which covered question number 1 to question number 10. If you happen to have missed that video, I recommend you watching that video as well because it will take you through the question number 1 to question number 10. And that's very important for you that you are not missing any of the question because you never know which question will come in the exam. Also, I recommend you to watch this playlist or this video. This video summarizes my previous playlist on Azure and will help you understand and answer the questions like how to start learning Azure, how much it costs, or what is Azure free tier, and how to create a free Azure account. I have explained the detailed process to create a free Azure tier account in these videos, so do check out them. In part 2, I have also explained what are the features of Azure free account and what happens when the free subscription ends, because this is one question that many people ask me, that what happens when their free subscription ends, how do they pay, how is their credit card charged, and a lot of other questions. So do check out this video. It will help answer all of those questions. Also, I have given a real Azure billing sample, the real bill that I get when I practice Azure or do work in Azure. So this will help you understand how the actual Azure billing works. Then I have also shown some of the very valuable online resources and books that you can take into consideration while you prepare for AZ-900 or Azure in general. For now, let's straight away jump into the part 2 of our AZ-900 real exam question and answer series and start with the question number 11. Question number 11 says that your company is planning to migrate all their virtual machines to an Azure pay-as-you-go subscription. The virtual machines are currently hosted on the Hyper-V hosts in a data center. You are required to make sure that the intended Azure solution uses the correct expenditure model. The solution given is that you recommended the use of elastic expenditure model. Does this solution meet the goal? To tell you more about the expenditure model, there are two kinds of expenditure model. One is capital expenditure, that is also known as CapEx, and the other one is operational expenditure, also known as OpEx. However, in the question, it asks about elastic expenditure model. Now, we don't have anything which is called elastic expenditure model. So the answer for this one is a no. Also, to give you more insights, so for example, let's say you get an option between operational or capex expenditure model, then what will you choose? In that case, you have to choose operational model. Why? Because currently the virtual machines are hosted on a Hyper-V host in a data center. So I assume that this data center is an on-prem, and now you are moving to Azure solution. So you will be incurring the cost on these virtual machines as and when you use it, or the period for which you use the virtual machines. The longer the period, the longer you pay or higher you pay. So thus this is an operational model and not capital expenditure. If you want to learn more about capital expenditure versus operational expenditure, then do check out this video. Question number 12 says that your company's infrastructure includes a number of business units that each needs a large number of various Azure resources for everyday operation. The resources required by each business unit are identical. You are required to sanction a strategy to create Azure resources automatically. The solution that you suggested is Azure API Management Service be included in the strategy. Do you think that this one meet the goal? Do you think Azure API Management Service meet the goal of deploying the resources automatically. So let me tell you a little more about Azure API Management Service. Azure API Management Service, or APIM, is a way to create and manage custom API for existing backend services. However, in this question, that is not the ask. The question is asking you to give a strategy which will create Azure resource automatically. So the best resource or best tool to do this activity is Azure Resource Manager, or popularly known as ARM. So ARM is the tool that gives you ability to automatically deploy resources on Azure. So the correct answer for this one is a no. Moving on with our question number 13. The question says that your company's Active Directory forest includes thousands of user accounts. You have been informed that all network resources will be migrated to Azure. Therefore, the on-premises data center will be retired. You are required to employ a strategy that reduces the effect on users once the planned migration has been completed. Solution is you plan to sync all Active Directory user accounts to Azure Active Directory or Azure AD. Does this solution meet the goal? So let me tell you one thing. See, syncing all the Active Directory user account to Azure Active Directory is the best thing. Why? Because this will sync all the users to Azure Active Directory, right? And the users will not even know this. So it is something that happens, but the users, the end users won't even notice. They won't even notice that the on-premise server, which was earlier managing the Active Directory, is gone. Thus, this will eventually reduce the impact on user or the effect on user. And that's exactly what the ask of the question is, that you have to reduce the effect on the users. So this is the best approach to sync all your Active Directory user accounts to the Azure Active Directory. Thus, the answer for this one is yes. Now pay attention. Sometimes the Microsoft questions will be a little trickier, or they will change the options. So sometimes they will give you an option of MFA or multi-factor authentication. In that case, do mindful and choose a no in that case, right? So do not choose a yes when multi-factor or MFA is given. Be considerate to check that always Azure Active Directory is given, and then only you choose a yes. Now we have question number 14, which says that your company subscription includes a basic support plan. They would like to request an assessment of an Azure environment design from Microsoft. This is, however, not supported by the existing plan. You want to make sure that the company subscribes to a support plan that allows this functionality while keeping the expenses to the minimum. Important points are you need to keep the expense to the minimum, and the requirement is that you need an assessment of an Azure environment design from Microsoft. Moving on to the solution, you recommend that the company subscribes to a premier support plan. Does this meet the goal? Before answering the question, let me take you to the Microsoft site. Now here we are on the Microsoft site. On this page, you can read about all about the support plan and compare them as well. Now you can see that we have basic plan, developer plan, standard plan, and professional direct plan. However, in the question, it asked about or it mentioned about a premier plan. This is very interesting because Microsoft will test your knowledge to the full. So you need to be very firm with the plans. What are the different kind of plans and what does each of them consist? Now, First of all, we have already seen that there is no premier plan. Of course, then the answer is no. However, interesting is to understand that which plan actually offers the Microsoft assessment of your Azure design. If you will scroll to this page and come a little down, now here you can see a link which says architecture support. You can already see that it is supported by developer, standard, and professional direct. However, the level is a little different. In developer and in standard, it says that it only supports general guidance. However, in the professional direct, it says that it supports guidance from a pool of pro direct delivery managers. Now, if you read about more on this architecture support, so here it says tackle your development milestones with the help of a Microsoft Azure engineer. Meet via interactive Microsoft Teams sessions and leave a detailed plan to architect, design, implement, migrate, or grow your application on Azure. So you can see that this page talks about how you can design and get assessment from Microsoft on various aspects of your Azure design. Coming back on this page, now you know that developer, standard, and professional direct, they do support assessment from Microsoft. However, the first two support the general guidance, and the last one supports a guidance from pool of pro direct delivery managers. Thus, taking into consideration where the question asks that you need to keep the cost in minimum, I would have gone with the developer option. Coming back to our question, we don't have Premier Support Plan as we saw on the Microsoft page. Thus, the answer for this one is a no. Now let's move on to our question number 15, which says that you are tasked with deploying Azure virtual machines for your company. You need to make use of appropriate cloud deployment solution. The solution given is that you should make use of software as a service, SaaS. Does this solution meet the goal? Now, before I answer this question, I want you to see all the variations of this question that can be asked in the examination. So, for example, let's move to question number 16 and question number 17. Now, you can see that the question is exactly the same. We are talking about virtual machines, and you need to tell about an appropriate cloud deployment solution. Same here. However, the solution given is little different. In this one, question number 15, we are talking about SaaS. Question number 16, we are talking about IaaS, which is infrastructure as a service. And then question number 17 talks about PaaS, which is platform as a service. So which one is a correct option? Here on this Microsoft page, it's a very interesting page where you can read about IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS offerings and learn more about their scope and what are they suitable for, advantages, disadvantages of each one of them. I will provide this useful link in the description box below as well. Coming back, here we see that this is IaaS, and IaaS talks about virtual machines. So whenever the question asks you about virtual machine, you can be sure that it is always referring to IaaS or infrastructure as a service. Now that you know that Azure Virtual Machine comes under IaaS or infrastructure as a service, now it's pretty simple to answer all these three questions. So the answer to the question number 15 is a no. Then the answer to question number 16 is definitely a yes, because we learned that virtual machines come under IaaS. Then of course the answer to question number 17 is also a no. Moving on with the question number 18. Question says that you are required to deploy an artificial intelligence AI solution in Azure. You want to make sure that you are able to build, test, and deploy predictive analytics for the solution. The solution that is recommended is that you should make use of Azure Machine Learning Studio. So, does this solution meet the goal? Now, to tell you more about Azure Machine Learning Studio, it is actually a solution or an interface given to you by Microsoft that helps you create and deploy AI solution in Azure. Thus, the answer for this one is yes. So Azure Machine Learning Studio is the correct option. You can read more about Azure Machine Learning Studio on this page. So on this page, you will get entire details of Azure Machine Learning and a sample how you can start designing already your applications or AI solution in Azure Machine Learning Studio. So it's a good page to come on before you start jumping to the machine learning or AI solution in Azure. Key point to keep in mind is that there has been, or in fact, there is a classic version of Machine Learning Studio as well. And if you're more interested to know the differences between the existing or the current Azure Machine Learning Studio and the classic one, come ahead and go ahead and click here. And here you can find all the differences between a feature by feature comparison between both of them. So, good page to learn. Now, quickly jumping to question number 19. In this question, it says your company's infrastructure includes a number of business units that each need a large number of various Azure resources for everyday operations. The resources required by each business unit are identical. You are required to sanction a strategy to create Azure resources automatically. The solution is you recommend that the Azure API management service to be included in the strategy. Do you think that this solution meet the goal? It's very important that you spot some of the keywords in the question. For example, it says that there are large number of resources that are needed for everyday operation. So when it comes to large number of resources, then one thing will always click your mind is that this should not be a manual activity, because manually deploying large number of resources can be very tricky and error prone. Secondly, it says that all the resources of by each business unit are identical. Now, if you're doing things manually, you are ought to do mistakes and you will forget something here and there, and then the resources will never be identical. And this will create a mess because the requirement itself is the resources should be identical. So of course, first thing you already know, or you should keep in mind, or it should click your mind that this is definitely something not manual. Now, as I always do, I want to show you all the variations that you may expect in the AZ-900 exam from Microsoft. There is similar question. However, solution for the question are different. So let's move on and check out the other variation. This is question number 20 and this is question number 22. Now if you will see and pay attention, you can see the question is exactly the same, right? And if you remember correctly, then the question number 12 in this video was also the same. Why I am repeating the question is to reinforce the concept in your mind and to show you the variations that can come in the exam. So just a reinforcement to help you for the exam. So now you see we have same question but different solution. The first one says that you recommend Azure API management service. The second one says that you recommend management group to be included in the strategy. The third one says that you recommend Azure Resource Manager template to be included in the strategy. So which one will you pick as the correct answer? Okay, so Azure API Manager, as the name suggests, that it is an API manager that helps you create and deal with the APIs. So it has nothing to do with deployment of resources, identical resources or large number of resources. So it's not even remotely connected to that. Talking about management groups allow you to organize subscriptions and apply governance controls such as Azure policy and role-based access controls or RBAC. So management group is also not related to deploying of Azure resources automatically. Now coming to the last option, which says that you should use Azure Resource Manager template. So Azure Resource Manager, or popularly also known as ARM templates, is a way to deploy resources by using JSON files. And then this ARM template is a very powerful tool because it enables you to create large number of resources, and the results you can always be sure that they are identical. So let me take you to the Microsoft site, which will tell you more about ARM templates. So now here we are on the Microsoft site, which gives you details about ARM templates. So as I say that ARM templates helps you deploy a large number of resources automatically. You can read these things here. I will just very briefly highlight them, and you can read them when you have time. So this section tells you that the infrastructure as a code for Azure solution use ARM resource template or ARM templates. So the template is JavaScript object notation or the JSON file that defines infrastructure and configuration for your project. So it's the templates are very declarative, so you can do lot of things very quick and with precise accuracy. Then there's a very nice video which you can go ahead and see about ARM templates, and then it gives you some of the key factors that you can consider while choosing ARM templates. So declarative syntax, repeatable results, and this is one of the requirements of the question, that the results should be repeatable or the results are identical. So it can be said in many ways, but this is what the question asks. So a lot of information about ARM template. So go ahead and check out this page from Microsoft site. Coming back to our slide, now that I have given you a brief about all the solutions, Azure API, Management Group, and Azure Resources, Azure Resource Manager, now I think you can already answer all the three questions. So let's check out the correct answers. So for the 19th one, the answer is no. For 20th, the answer is again a no. And now we know that the correct answer is ARM template. So whenever you are seeing a question is about lot of resources getting deployed, the results should be identical or repeatable or these kind of stuff, then you always think of ARM templates as an answer. So now let's quickly jump to our question number 22. The question says that you are tasked with deploying a critical LOB which will be installed on a virtual machine to Azure. You are informed that the application deployment strategy should allow for guaranteed availability of 99.99%. You need to make sure that the strategy requires as little virtual machines and availability zones as possible. The solution is you include two virtual machines and one availability zone in your strategy. Does that meet the goal? Now, as I always do, I will give you all the variations of this question that can come in Microsoft AZ-900 exam. So let's first check out the variations of this question, and then we will jump on to understand the answer. So this is another variation. So this is another variation, question number 23. And then I have question number 24 with one more variation. So the other solution in question number 23 says, the question being the same, the solution says that you include one virtual machine and two availability zone in your strategy. Whereas in question number 24, it says you include two virtual machines and two availability zones in your strategy. Now, the key points or keywords that you need to pick in this question is the solution should allow for a guaranteed availability of 99.99%. So this is a key factor of deciding for the solution. So it could have been 99.99 and it could also be 99.95. So depending upon the question, we would need to select the answer. Now let me take you to the Microsoft page so that you can better understand the answer that I will pick and why I have picked that answer, the reason behind that. So let's go to the Microsoft page. So here I am on the Microsoft page, which gives clear details about SLA for virtual machines. Here you can see they have given some of the combinations and what is the least expected uptime or availability time that you can expect with the solution or with the arrangement of virtual machine and availability zone. So let's check out the first one. It says that for all virtual machines that have two or more instances deployed across two or more availability zone in the same Azure region, we guarantee that you will have virtual machine connectivity to at least one instance at least 99.99 of the time. This is very important for us as this is the expectation from our solution as well. Now you can see there is 99.95% as well. So whenever the question asks for 99.95, then you have to choose from this option. However, for now that we should have at least two or more instances of virtual machines and availability zones. So keyword is two or more. Coming back to our question also demanded the same, that we should have 99.99, and we should also take care that we should possibly deploy the solution which requires as little virtual machines and availability zones as possible. Now from the Microsoft page, we learned that at least we should have two availability zones and two virtual machines to give a 99.99% of availability. With that understanding, now let's answer question number 22, 23 and 24. So the answer for question number 22 is a no. Why? Because though it takes two virtual machines, it just takes only one availability zone. So if your availability zone fails, then your solution is gone. And then you won't get a 99.99. Similarly, for question number 2 as well, it says one virtual machine and two availability zone. So even though you have two availability zone, you still have one virtual machine. That actually defeats the purpose. The correct answer for 23 is also a no. Moving on with question number 22, we have two virtual machines and two availability zone. And that's exactly what we saw on the Microsoft page. Thus, the correct answer for question number 24 is a yes. So guys, why I'm presenting these variations of all these questions is to help you out understand not only from the perspective of exam, but also overall concept of Azure and how things or virtual machines or availability zones or the other things that we saw in the previous questions, how the concept actually works. I hope you're liking the way of presentation for our AZ-900 exam question series. Now let's jump to our question number 25, which will be the last question for this part 2. The question says that your company's developer intend to deploy a large number of custom virtual machines on a weekly basis. They will be also removing these virtual machines during the same week it was deployed. 60% of the virtual machines have Windows Server 2016 installed, while the other 40% has Ubuntu Linux installed. You are required to make sure that the administrative effort needed for this process is reduced by employing a suitable Azure service. The solution given here is you recommend the use of Microsoft Managed Desktop. Does the solution meet the goal? Now, if you have watched the part 1, in part 1 we had question number 1 and question number 2 in which we discuss two more variations of the same question. However, in question number 1, the solution given was Azure Reserved Virtual Machine, and in question number 2, the solution was given Azure Dev Test Lab. If you have not watched the part 1 of this series, I would encourage you to watch that video as well, because that will give you insights of why I chose Azure Dev Test Lab as a solution for this kind of business scenario. For now, as for question number 25, the answer to this one is a no, because Microsoft Managed Desktop is a device as a service, or you can also call it a DaaS offering, in which Microsoft manages your desktop for a monthly fee. So there can be a lot of uses for these kind of Microsoft Managed Desktop. For example, these days when you are working from home, and let's say you need a desktop or a machine to work on, then you can go ahead and spin a Microsoft Managed Desktop.
If this video has added any value in your learning, a like and subscribe is highly appreciated. Share this video in your family and friends to spread and expand their learning. Your comments and feedback give me a chance to interact with you, and I look forward for them. We will meet again in our next video. Till then, stay fit, keep learning, and thanks for watching.